Untitled Coffee with the Geek Show. Today's special guest, Joie Laykoff. Show. This is June of 2026. Summer is finally here in Western New York, which means we've got some sunny days, and it stopped raining, which has been good. With me today is Joie Laykoff, and Joie is a really special guest, and I can't wait to dig into her background and what she's up to. She is the Senior Director of Teaching and Learning at Fusion Education Group, which is part of Fusion Academy, which I hope we're going to talk about. She has teaching background, special ed background. She holds a BA in psychology, bachelor's in psychology, master's in special education, and a mid to moderate disabilities credential. So, Joie, thank you so much for joining me across the country here.
Yeah.
Let's first off start with the fun and easy question. So, what is your favorite cup of coffee or favorite drink of choice?
I'm definitely a coffee drinker, but I've also segued into those mushroom supplement coffee
Oh, wow,
packets.
really?
So two things. What I've been doing lately is starting off with an espresso and just putting in a little bit of vanilla creamer in there. And then typically about an hour or two after that, I will blend up this delicious mushroom. I swear I found a brand that's actually good. And it's got, some collagen in there and a bunch of good stuff for me. So I usually have a mixture of coffee and that powder. And then at the same time, I have all the libations. At the same time, I'm usually trying to drink, a 25 ounces of water. So
right. And you like it and it's healthy and feels good?
I like it. It's healthy. The one time I tried to do the mushroom powder without the coffee, I got a little bit of a headache. So that shows you how addicted I am to coffee right now.
I know. I have the same problem. All right. So I'm really fascinated about Fusion Academy. But before we get there, can you tell me about just your educational journey? It sounds like some teaching, some special ed background. Just talk about your journey as an educator, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I think a lot of educators have this story where, they come from a family of educators and they always wanted to be a teacher, and it came to me a little more slowly. But when you look back, it all makes sense. As a teenager, I was definitely the kid on the street. I was the oldest one, and I would babysit for a lot of the younger kids. Always enjoyed that. But I was a director of development for a helpline crisis center at my college. And I had a colleague at the time working with children with autism doing ABA therapy, and suggested that I apply for a job with this company called Autism Center for Treatment. I did that. I ended up really enjoying working out of the home and in the schools with these kids and their families, and started to learn a little bit more about what it means to have some, disabilities and learning differences, and, what the dynamic was between those kids and their teachers and those kids and their families. So at the time I was, as you mentioned, I was getting my bachelor's in psychology, and I decided I wasn't going to go the therapeutic route. And instead, I wanted to take the route of education, and especially special education. That experience was very core for me. So at that point, when I decided to go into special education, I then began teaching at a non-public school. And for anyone who's familiar with non-public schools, you are teaching kids who the public school has ultimately said they no longer have the resources to work with. So oftentimes, very severe situations. And that was such a privilege for me. I was teaching fourth, fifth, and sixth graders, and really was exposed to, what it means for kids to be really disenfranchised personally and in the education system. And then shortly after I was actually introduced to Fusion, I went based on a recommendation from an educational therapist at my school to go see Dr. Rick Lavoie speak, who is just an amazing author, speaker, theorist. And I just love what he has to say about working with kids and how his theories around behavior and behavior supports. So when I went to see him speak, it was actually hosted by Fusion. And at the time, It was Fusion's first replication, which we'll speak a little bit more about Fusion, I'm sure, in just a bit, but their first replication in Los Angeles. So Dr. Lavoie spoke a bit about how transformative the program was, and that captivated my attention. So I've been with Fusion for 16 years. And
Wow.
yeah, it was at the start of our replication, and now we're at 84 schools. So it's a little bit of my journey. I started at Fusion as sort of a special education lead and worked my way up. And I was a head of school at the Fusion Los Angeles location. And for many, many years now, I've been on the education team and had the pleasure of serving the organization nationally across right now as our 84 campuses and our virtual school.
Wow. So tell me about Rick Lavoie. That name sounds familiar. What
Yeah.
is
So,
his
yeah,
quick bio?
Rick Lavoie is somebody who I just think in he's I think known for a documentary called Fat City, I believe.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, and like there's sort of a I remember being introduced to him that way, and then when I heard about, he's got, of course, some amazing books. He's got a book around the motivation breakthrough and, how to help kids with learning disabilities find, social connection and things like that. So I think his disposition is really one that, especially in the beginning of my career, I, thought was interesting and inspiring. So, yeah.
So let's dig into Fusion Academy. Can you give us the kind of uh, big picture of it, and then let's talk about what makes it special, what makes it different from other school environments.
Yeah, Fusion is such an interesting model. And when I first came to tour it after that talk, I was really so impressed with just the physical setting of being at a Fusion. So, you walk into a more traditional school, and usually you'll see kind of the primary colors and the big campuses and, brick and mortar classrooms. And walking into a Fusion, it's bright colors, it's very familial, and every teacher has their own classroom because we work one to one. That is really the primary work that we do. And what makes Fusion special is, you walk onto a campus and there's a few things. First being, you've got in the center of a campus what's called our homework cafe. And the homework cafe is the place where students are all throughout the day spending time doing their independent work. We don't try not to send homework home, so they do their work there, and they're also socializing all day. There's a lot of both passive and active programming in the homework cafe. So there's a lot of activity on a Fusion campus, but the way that the classroom instruction works is that students meet with their teachers one to one. And so they'll have a math teacher for 1 hour, and then they'll move into the homework cafe, and they'll do the work from that class, and they'll go in and see their science teacher for an hour. And it's really interesting in that way. So what's special about our education model is a few things. First being it's relationship based. So because you've got that one-to-one dynamic, everything is really centered around how can I build an authentic connection with this student. The second thing is, we are looking at the holistic development of children. So it's both, of course, academics, but also through that connection, it's social emotional as well. And then the third thing is mastery learning. So the idea here, and we all know from being classroom teachers, it's quite hard to make sure that all of our students are grasping the content. And we certainly don't want to move on until that happens, but that's a real high bar when you've got 20, 30 kids in the class. Well, when you have one, you have the opportunity to really make sure that that learning sticks before moving on. So I would say, just to kind of sum that up, I think what's interesting is the one-to-one, the homework cafe, and then those three aspects of the education model being, the relationship based, the mastery learning, and then that holistic approach.
So many questions to ask off of that. But first of all, where are you located? What's your kind of state? We can just
So
go.
I was mentioning earlier, I was the head of school at the Los Angeles location. So
Okay.
I'm actually here, live by the beach, Hermosa Beach area, Redondo Beach, and We have a campus that's close by to me. It's our South Bay campus and our Palos Verdes campus. So those are right here by the beach. But I was at the Los Angeles campus, and we've got many, many schools up and down the state of California.
So it's California specific at this point?
No, actually. So we have 84 schools across about 17 states. So, but not only that, we do have our virtual program. So if we have families and students that are not living in the states where we currently reside with a brick and mortar campus, then they can enroll in Fusion virtually, which I think is really interesting because Fusion was one of the first programs that was offering virtual one-to-one synchronous learning. So I'm not talking about going online for a program, but actually meeting with your teacher, just much like we're doing right now, and much like we do in our campuses, but just virtually. Of course, with the support of our learning management system, we use Canvas right now. So, and I'll also mention too, we work one-to-one with students, but we have several other programs because the idea here is we're personalizing a program for students. So we do also offer group sessions, and we do have an asynchronous program as well.
How do you kind of make the one-to-one relationship happen? I mean, just from a personnel standpoint, how does it work from a teacher side of things?
So from the teacher side of things, it's interesting. We'll get a lot of teachers that come in and they, either are feeling a bit disengaged with that classroom setting and feeling as though what they're trying to do, or maybe in theory, how they're trying to impact students, it's just, when the rubber meets the road, that's not coming to life because, again, you've got a lot of different conditions that you're dealing with in the classrooms. We'll get a lot of teachers that come in and they're just looking for something different. And so when you're in the classroom, the way that it works is, you as a teacher, you're going to see 6 to 8 students a day. And as those students are coming in, they are all on their own curriculum, let's call it. So for example, as an institution, we have our foundational curriculum. So for example, Algebra 2 looks like Algebra 2 for everyone. However, the way in which you teach that is going to be unique to the student. So the student has a series of months that they're spending with this teacher. And of course, they're meeting those outcomes. But at the same time, the types of discussions that they're having, the types of assignments and assessments that they're being given may differ from student to student, just depending on how that student is going to engage in the content and how they're going to be able to best demonstrate what they know. So it's like for a teacher, you're going in and you're kind of, if you're an Algebra 2 teacher, you know your content really well, but you're sort of tweaking it every time you're seeing a student. And I would say our teachers are really, really skilled in differentiation.
So teachers meet with 6 different students a day? Is that what
They'll meet with six to eight, full day. And then those students, they'll meet with several times in the week. So what is most common is that you might teach a class to a particular student on a Monday and a Wednesday, on a Tuesday and a Thursday.
Oh, so it really is a very specific thing. And then the students are doing the work outside of their interactions with the teachers on Canvas, you said? So online?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are
And
the
what's
student,
really
I'm sorry to interrupt because so the teachers and the students, they're getting connected virtually or they're in person or both?
So the majority of our program is in person. So as I mentioned, we have 84 campuses. Now, it's funny because it's not a traditional campus that you would see. It's smaller. It's a full-time student count at our schools are going to be anywhere from 50 to 120 students. And so that happens in person. We do also have a virtual program where that is a different subset of teachers. Everyone is virtual. Teachers are virtual and the students are virtual, and they're meeting one-to-one. You mentioned the part about the homework though too, which I think is really important. I used to be a head of school, so I was listening to families day in and day out. And one of the biggest stressors for our kids, was the pressure and the tension that existed at home because kids would come home with their homework and, didn't understand the work or struggled with executive function. And so not only were the difficulties happening at school, but then the parents were absorbing that as well. And so what we've done to the best of our ability, and I would say the majority of the time, is that students are completing all of their work on campus. And so by the time they leave for the day and they go home or they go off to their extracurricular activities, there is no more school. And usually what we hear from parents is the joy that has returned back to the household has been pretty immense.
That's nice. Yeah, and I like to see that offering of a different model. So, say a student wants to participate in sports, are they able to through other schools, that sort of thing?
At times, there will be partnerships with other schools where students will be able to be enrolled with Fusion and then they'll still play on the athletics team there. However, we do have a lot of opportunities for just social connection for our students. So, and then of course, if students are involved in travel sports and such, then certainly I think one of the things we do really nicely is we have a flexible schedule for those students. But this past year, we actually just started our first esports program, and we're offering several tournaments of esports every single year, and kids are having a blast with that. But then we also have on-campus opportunities in addition to national opportunities. So, for example, if you were to come to my school when I was at West LA, there would be opportunities to join clubs and events and field trips. And then we also nationally across all of our campuses offer we offer clubs, we offer competitions. And so in terms of being active within a school program, there are so many experiences that you could be involved in. So it's really, you're not just coming, as I mentioned, for the academics, but you're also coming for the social and emotional aspect. And a lot of our kids that join Fusion, it isn't necessarily the academics that wasn't working at the traditional environment. Could be, right, the social piece. And so coming to that smaller, more intimate environment and, finding a couple of friends or a particular opportunity that aligns with your passion is like exactly what these kids need. Not necessarily being kind of that small fish in a big sea.
Tell me about, and I think I have an idea of this just based off the conversation, but tell me about the belonging gap and how does Fusion kind of meet that, and what is the belonging gap and
Yeah. Yeah.
or
So the belonging gap is actually a term that our chief academic officer, Lena Martinez Kalilian, has coined. And I remember we were at a conference about a year ago, and she gave this amazing keynote about the belonging gap, and it really resonated with so many of us that have been with Fusion for quite some time. But the idea here is that many of our students are not seen, heard, valued, and I'm talking not just the students that we see at Fusion, because we students coming to Fusion obviously are a reflection of the experiences they've had previously. And so oftentimes at Fusion, we're seeing our students that are on the decline from that experience of not feeling seen. And, if we don't feel seen at school, we spend the majority of our time there, then it feels really transactional. And when it starts to feel transactional and, your teacher maybe doesn't know your name, maybe doesn't know the quality of your work, maybe doesn't, meet with you to share feedback, then we start to disengage, right? And so what we see is this huge belonging gap with our kids. And I think what the data is suggesting is that disconnection is so common, and that students report feeling more disengaged at school as they get older. Right. And I have a little one. My little one is 3, and school is everything. And his teachers are so connected to him. And being in education for as long as I have now, you see over time that the experience between the students and the teachers really does lessen. And I think that's a result of, certainly it's not what teachers want, but I think the pressures in the classroom. So there's also some research from the CDC on just like school connectedness and students who feel a sense of belonging, and kids who reported like positive mental health had a stronger sense of belonging to their school. And so I think just overall, kids need human connection. Keeping in mind that a lot of times at school, kids they're only going to work oftentimes for the teachers that see them, and where there's that like extrinsic motivation. They want someone to be proud of them. I know for me, when I know that a teacher knows who I am, I'm going to want to perform more. So I think that the belonging gap here is that our kids do not feel a sense of connection at school. And because of that, they disengage. And, when you disengage from school, obviously your academics decline and opportunities for the future are minimized, and, on and on and on. So it's really kind of that canary in the coal mine, the belonging gap.
So I'm sure you've been taking kind of data, and is the data showing that this type of model shows success, especially for students that don't feel connected in their other type of schools?
Yeah, so we have a couple data points that we use, and one of them is through our MAP assessment, and you might be familiar with that. Many schools across the country use it. It's from NWEA, and we see academically that our students grow twice as much within their academics. So we're talking reading, math, language usage, and our students are demonstrating those academic performance outcomes through the type of teaching that we do. And we are also tracking the social emotional development of our students, which, when you look at that data, sometimes it's a kid could have a bad day. But, what we are seeing generally, and we're looking forward to doing more kind of longitudinal research there, but is that the more we invest in student programming on our campuses, very intentionally, the stronger those outcomes are. And what we're looking at are things like inclusivity, self-awareness, et cetera. So we have seen a lot of evidence that supports the model that we have. Again, going back to that connection, the emphasis on connection, the emphasis on personalized learning, mastery learning, all those things together are building a student's sense of meaning and competency.
Do you see the continued growth? I mean, if we were to take project 5 years out, I mean, are we looking at expanding everything that you're doing? Because it sounds like you're on a pretty good trajectory.
Yeah, and I've been with Fusion for so long that I'm able to really see how that progression has occurred over time. And right now, again, having been there for 16 years and Fusion having been in existence for 20 plus, we are still on what I would say the forefront of innovation. And I say that because, when you think about 20 years ago, there wasn't an education like this, and certainly not one that was proliferating the way that Fusion was, which, with that one-to-one idea, no one was doing that. And so one of our core values is being innovative. And right now, even just this past year, I had mentioned we started our esports program. We're growing our AP program. We just did an incredible study with really encouraging results with a cognitive training program. We're doing cool things integrating AI to make understanding our students and planning classroom instruction for our students more personalized and efficient. And that's just in this past year. So I do think we're going to keep staying on the forefront of innovation. But I also think about not so much where we are going to be at in 5 years, but because I think we're going to keep growing, right? And nationally, internationally, but it's where I see students needing that personalized and connected education more than ever. An education that can guarantee learning as AI proliferates and the quality of learning is highly questionable. An education that can guarantee engagement where, more and more our students are disconnecting from school because when knowledge is a one message to chat GPT away, the purpose of learning is really minimized. So yes, we are going to keep growing and we're going to continue to stay innovative. But I also think that the conditions in the world right now are going to make it such that students will continue to need Fusion or an education like Fusion more and more.
As I listen to you talk, I hear the word innovation come out several times, but also just to chat with you face to face. over the miles here. I see the passion on your face, which I love, and put those two words together, innovation and passion. And I think you're onto something really good. And it seems like, I think that's probably fueling, I think, Fusion Academy and where you're going.
Yeah, I'll even, I was talking with a teacher earlier, and just to put kind of a highlight on some of this like innovation and passion. I was talking with her earlier, but I've also been coaching her the past year as part of an initiative that we're leading, and she's been with Fusion almost as long as I've been, and I've been able to see her lessons over and over again as I'm doing this coaching. And every single time she teaches something, she teaches something like a little different in a different way to the student. And you can see how she forms a connection with each of her students. And so, yes, I'm on the education team. I'm not on a campus anymore, but I get to see the way that this comes to life. And on Saturday, I was at one of our Fusion graduations and hearing story after story from every single one of our students has a lead mentor, hearing stories from them. It's just really beautiful to see the way that Fusion continues to transform lives, truly. Yeah.
That's amazing. All right, our time is coming to a close, but let me ask you just what I ask you a couple of what I call speed geek questions. So just quick, short answers. So, what's your favorite way to unplug from technology?
Favorite way to unplug right now. So I keep telling all of my friends and my colleagues that I am in my Lego mom era. And my son and I have done about 9 Lego sets in the last couple of months. Yesterday we did Ninjago, and the day before that we did a monster truck. So that is my favorite way right now to unplug.
That's awesome. I love it. Favorite educational blog?
I think I would say Greater Good is just a very ubiquitous one, and I always enjoy think their Greater Good calendars, that their happiness calendar that they put out. And I like a lot of their lesson plans, and I think we need a bit more of that, optimism and the resilience that they promote. So I really enjoy their content.
Awesome. Okay, last one. This will be a fast one. Your AI tool or platform you've been using? Grok, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, or none of the above?
So Copilot mostly is what I've been using. I'm trying
Okay.
to think. There's like, it's like all of us, we sort of like bounce between a few of them, but I would say Copilot is the one mostly. But I'm a big fan of ChatGPT as well.
Okay. I'm to me, Microsoft always kind of their naming of things always seems like the stiff, right? Like just very straightforward, not compared to Apple using GarageBand or Google Gemini. So, but I love Copilot as an AI term because to me it really does do what I think AI should be, which is a co-pilot, someone that can help you, someone who can guide you, but you're still the pilot, right? You're still in charge, and I think that's a good conceptual framework. So I give Microsoft credit on that one.
I never thought about that, but that is a
Yeah.
really great point. That everything else is a little bit like they make theirs is very explicit, and everything else is just sort of like a fun
Yeah.
name.
Yeah. So, well, Joy, this has been a really great conversation. We could keep going for a long time, but I'm fascinated. FusionAcademy.com is where you could find more information about the school and information about you. LinkedIn is where I found some of your info. So,
Yeah.
great meeting you, and I hope we'll keep in touch.
Andy, it was nice meeting you as well. Thank you.